What's up, everybody? My name is Joe Brown, and this is Heresy Financial. Another month has come, which means, you guessed it, another inflation record has been broken, and this time it is the PPI. So what is the PPI? It is the Producer Price Index. This measures the change in prices for making stuff. So this is different than the Consumer Price Index, which is what people are usually referring to when they just say inflation, just in general. They're talking about for the end consumer, what does it cost to actually just buy something? The PPI is different in that it tries to measure the changes in what it costs to make that stuff. And so this month, we saw the PPI increase at a faster rate than it's ever increased since the creation of this measure, since this measure was introduced in 2010. So it jumped by 7.8%, and that's a year-over-year number. So that's compared to from last July to this July in that 12-month period. Despite this, we're seeing a lot of people come out now and say that it looks like inflation has peaked. And so that's a little bit interesting to me that in light of another record, we're now starting to see people come out and say, hey, we're starting to see signs that inflation has peaked. Because when you see prices jump in, kind of earlier on in the production chain, usually that means they still have time. They still have to make their way through to the end consumer. And so in my opinion, just by this alone, the fact that we've hit a record in PPI means that if inflation is going to start slowing down, it's not going to start slowing down yet. Could be wrong, but just from this alone that's one indication that I'm looking at. One reason that they're stating that this is likely signaling that we're close to a peak in inflation is because jobless claims continue to fall. The economy's getting back to work. Some of the crunches that led to some of the transitory, the supply chain things, they're saying that these things are starting to resolve themselves. And another indication is that U.S. consumer prices, the inflation rate slowed in July. And so if we take a look here at the U.S. Consumer Price Index, we see that in July, the change from June, that was a slower change than we've experienced in a while. And so if we look at prices last July to consumer prices this July, the CPI increased 5.4%. Which is lower than June. Now, obviously, when you're measuring prices, it's not like the economy prices all rise or drop in lockstep with each other. As new money, as the expansion of the money supply, that new money works its way throughout the economy, you're going to see different things increase in price at different paces and at different times than each other. And so right now, one of the things that they're seeing inflation hit a little bit more heavily is going to be bars, restaurants. Let me see if I can find that in this article. It talked about bars and restaurants. Here it talks about jump in bars and restaurant prices are showing no sign of slowing. Similar for shelter and energy. And so rents specifically looks like they're just getting started ramping up, and we're going to see a lot of increases in rent prices probably at least for the next couple of months. Now, it's interesting to me that right now specifically we're seeing some analysts come out and say it looks like inflation is peaking right now. Specifically because we're starting to see, one of the reasons they're saying it's peaked is because they're saying, hey, these the problems that have caused inflation, like supply chain issues, are starting to resolve themselves. Well, just within the last couple of days, we've seen new congestion arise from China's top two container ports in Shanghai and Ningbo. And so this is they're shutting down from COVID cases that China's starting to see in areas. And so at this point, if you're going to blame inflation on things other than the record increase in the money supply over the last year and a half, you're going to point at things like the supply chain issues. And if that is the thing that you're pointing at, I don't see how you're pointing at that right now and saying, hey, these things are starting to resolve themselves because we just got another shutdown. And shipping rates are already sky high, record high. They recently topped $20,000 for a 40-foot box. That's just astronomical. It used to be like $3,000, $2,000 for these. within the last 2 years ago. And so if you're pointing at this as something that's resolving itself that will lead to inflation slowing down, that doesn't seem to be the case right now. And keep in mind, we have to look at what it means for inflation to slow down. I want to always reiterate this because it's very, very important. Take a look at this graph. Let's say this is what the Federal Reserve wants to make happen and always shoots for, just a constant 2% inflation every year. Prices on average just go up by 2% year over year. Now let's say for 2021 we're going to get an average inflation rate of, let's just say, 8%. This is what the chart would look like if that 8% is transitory. It means we have 2% inflation before, then we have 1 year of 8% inflation, and then a return to 2% inflation following that. It does not mean prices come back down. It means the rate of change in prices comes back down to the normal targeted 2%. So it's key to remember this, and Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell even openly admitted to this when he was questioned about it at the last press conference after our last FOMC meeting. They said, hey, what does transitory really mean? And he said it's referring to the change in prices, not the absolute price levels. And he said nobody expects that prices are going to come back down when the inflation rate subsides. Disinflation refers to that 8% turning back into 2%. It's a deceleration. It's not reversing or stopping. And especially for the rest of the year, as we enter into the last half of the year where spending starts ramping up and we get into peak shopping season, especially for the United States, it doesn't look like prices rising is going to be slowing down anytime soon. And that if this rate of change in prices is transitory, it's going to that rate of change is going to start to slow down maybe in 2022. Doesn't look like it's going to be able to slow down anytime soon. Could be wrong, we shall see. But as for now, prices are still rising and it looks like they've reached a permanently higher plateau. As always, I really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.